Honestly, I think they could have done more with the ban list. Hey guys, it's P here, and today we are going to go into a short discussion about what I feel like really missed out on the ban list. The reality is that free play is definitely still an issue in the card game, and I do think that Bandai was on the right track when they got around to making the ban list that they did. The only issues really remain that while the theme of the ban list was there, they really wanted to tackle free play and wanted to bring the game back into a place where people had to pay resources to be able to get abilities and play battle cards and put pressure. It does feel like they didn't target the right cards in the right way, and they just completely missed some others. Now, you guys know me. I don't like limits. I think limits just create more feel bad situations, right? If my opponent draws his one of Bardock now, I'm like, oh, great. He drew his one of Bardock, but I am less incentivized now to play around the Bardock because there's only that one up. At that point, it's basically like drawing a secret rare. So it creates a really feel bad situation. I'd rather have to know that I have to play against multiple copies of it, or that I just don't have to worry about it. You know, one or the other. Ban it, don't ban it. I really don't like limits. But either way, even then, the cards that they did limit don't really impact all that much. Heartfelt Plea is brought to 1, and all that hurts are the decks that really relied on Heartfelt Plea to make their plays, like Red Yellow Baby, which isn't a meta deck anymore, but it's just to say it's a deck that got hurt by the ban list that didn't have to be. Because the decks that are running Heartfelt Plea are running him at like 1 or 2. No Heartfelt Plea deck is actually going out and running him at 4 copies. That's absolutely absurd. Same thing with Bardock Resolute. He's a black zero combo card. So no deck is actually, they're probably running 2. I'd be shocked if they ran 3. But just to say a limit to 1 really only cuts down such a small percentage of the power that those cards were bringing to the degenerate decks and really pulled away from the decks in the game. Now, mind you, I don't think Bardock is necessary. I think it is just an aggro piece that really doesn't need to exist, but like fine, it exists, and it's not the end of the world on that end. You can kind of play around it. But the reality is that they whiffed out on a lot of stuff. They did focus on Sin Shenron aggro, which definitely need to get hit, guys. As much as you might not like the Stormish meta that we have now, I really didn't like knowing that if I tapped out on turn 1 and I was turn 2 player, I could lose 8 health right away off of like a quad strike. That was not good. I do appreciate that they dealt with that deck. But it does feel like in suppressing the Sin aggro, they forgot about red aggro. And now, mind you, the King Vegeta deck of prior to the ban list wasn't what it was today. Now, all the cards were available for it, but no one played it that way. But if they were tackling free play, the biggest things that they really should have hit were things like New Ruler. They should have hit Tau. Or just a number of cards that can Belmont. Just all these cards that not only can be free play, but free play multiple times. You know, you play out a bunch of cards, you play out, which allows you to Tau. And then once you Tau, you're able to then Belmont to clear the board. And then you can play stuff again. And then we have, you know, these FTK decks on hand. But even if it's not FTK, I think the fact that every free play, you can start considering every free play kind of like an additional overwhelm, right? Your opponent didn't tap out for energy. And usually you can account for that back in previous formats of the game because, okay, my opponent has 1 overwhelm. He's tapped out, but like I can account for the additional attack based on his overwhelm. But now the reality with how much free play is in the game is that opponents now, players in general, are getting 4, 5, 6 overwhelms to extend their plays when they're done with their energy. The funniest thing was when Legends was doing his deck profile in FTK Vegeta, he separated the deck profile between cards that you pay energy for, and then the other third of the deck was like, okay, and now here's the cards we actually pay energy for, which is absolutely ridiculous. I understand that it's going to take time for things to get here, right? And I think set 14 is showing us that they are trying to scale down the power of the set. But right now, set 14 is super overshadowed by the fact that the ban list didn't impact enough decks that still have an insane amount of free play. You know, Dark Broly can play 30Ks for free on top of being able to play the Gogeta engine as an example. King Vegeta is going to do the King Vegeta thing. So we're definitely in a position where free play is very powerful on top of just red and black cards being pretty cracked right now in general. Black being the entirety of the Gogeta package, red just having such good cards in the form of like the Piccolo Unison, which I still don't understand how his auto is not once per turn. That thing's crazy. So just a lot of really good cards to be able to bring their strategies together. So on that front, I don't think Bandai was that far off the mark. I think they just need to fully commit to the theme of their ban list, get rid of free play, and really tackle the issues. Now, you could argue that New Ruler isn't an issue if you deal with all the other stuff. I do think the other ones are way more of an issue because there's less requirements to play them, or the requirements are incredibly easy, especially with the decks that play them. Like, Tau is just free in that deck. Belmont is super easy to make. Belmont, I'd be fine with an errata. Just make him like green yellow. Like at that point, I think he would be fine. At least he'd be very much restricted to the decks that could play him. At Tau, I think you can just let him go. Like having 3 battle cards is like pretty nothing for a lot of archetypes that we have these days. Just an example. And then you get rid of those 2, then like you just have to accept that a new ruler is like a second overrun. But at least then you're dealing with a second overrun that your opponent has, and not the 3rd, 4th, or 5th attack that they didn't actually have to pay any resources to be able to use. And that's my biggest issue. I can account for 1. I can sometimes account for 2, but when we're talking about 3, 4, 5, at that point, I'm at the mercy of my opponent, and here's to hoping that I drew the right defensive pieces to be able to deal with them. And even if I did draw the right defensive pieces, I don't feel like I'm all that much of a skillful player if on turn 1, I saw my Protector of the People, which prevented my opponent from trying to kill me. And that's the core of a lot of issues I've been having with the like, don't get me wrong, I've had fun with Dragon Ball, but the format has been stale for me when, as a defensive, I play control your decks, I play mid-range your decks, I don't tend to play the aggro deck. So the game becomes see my floodgate, don't die, do a little bit of value stuff on my turn, see another floodgate, don't die, and like if I fail to see my floodgate in between, then odds are I'm probably dead. So the fact that the game has become see a floodgate or you die is kind of frustrating. Doesn't make me feel like a skillful player when I win the game that way, because all I did was prevent my opponent from killing me by playing like 1 or 2 cards, which I had to see. And that's my issue. Those are the lines I have to make to prevent myself from dying. And that doesn't make me feel skillful as a player, even if I win. But that's just my quick take on that one, guys. What do you guys feel about free play? How do you guys think that the ban list could have been taken further? I think the meta is going to be fine. It's just going to be the same meta as the last one. We might see 1 or 2 decks creep in there, but I do expect the next ban list to be another quote-unquote expansive ban list, and hit a lot of things to kind of compensate for the fact that the meta hadn't changed all that much since the previous one. Oh, also, for those guys who don't think Dark Broly is still good, Dark Broly is still insane. Yes, it got nerfed defensively. It's still busted. With that said, guys, let me know down in the comments how you guys would have pushed the ban list further, or what you guys would like to see in the next ban list. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. Hey, if you dislike it, thumbs down works too. If you want to watch more videos, we're doing discussion videos throughout the week while your boy is gone. But when I'll be coming back, we'll be also doing deck lists and talking about the meta and all that jazz. Buttons in the corner. And with that said, I'll catch you guys on the next one.